Have you been considering making the move to Goodyear, Arizona, and you need to know anything and everything about it? Well, in today's video, I am going over exactly that, so go ahead and keep on watching. Welcome back to Phoenix Living. I'm Nicole Baker. Today we are going over exactly that, but before we get started, you know the drill. I have to let you guys know I'm a licensed realtor here in this beautiful state. So if you've been considering making the move to any Phoenix, Arizona suburb, I would love to assist you guys. My number and email are popping up now. If you guys have questions, go ahead and reach out. If you're not quite ready to reach out yet, no problem. Go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to be posting videos every Monday and Thursday at 5 p.m. And also this specific video is part of a 4-part series where I am exploring all that Goodyear has to have. Today we're talking about anything and everything Goodyear, and it's more of a talking style video. And in the next 3 parts, we're actually going to be doing a driving tour. Goodyear is a huge area and there's lots to cover. So go ahead and subscribe if you want to learn more about that. But let's get started in today's video. There's so many different ways to look at pros and cons. One might see something as a pro and the other person might see it as a con. So take all of these with a grain of salt, but I'm gonna just tell you kind of the pros and cons that I think you should be considering. So number 1 pro, actually before we even get into the pros, I have to let you guys know also, I've lived in 3 cities that are all very close together. So Goodyear, Litchfield Park, and Avondale, all parts of it kind of touch each other, right? So one person could be in this neighborhood and 2 minutes away could be, well, one person could be in this neighborhood that could be considered Avondale, and then 2 minutes away could be considered Goodyear. 2 minutes the other way could be considered Litchfield Park. So they're all very close together. So I've lived in Goodyear majority of my life. I'm very familiar with the Goodyear area. One of the things that is my absolute favorite thing about living in Goodyear / Litchfield Park / Avondale, all of them are great, but Goodyear specifically, you are really close to anything and everything like shopping and food. It is really annoying when you live somewhere that isn't close to that if you're like me, right? I am a homebody, but also I don't like to cook and I'm always on the go. So I need to have quick access to all the amenities that Goodyear has to offer. So whether it be Target, Lowe's, Home Depot, Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, sushi spots, movie theater, literally anything, you are within a 5 to 10 minute span. I mean, that is something that I really love about, I live in Avondale, but again, it's super close to Goodyear right now, and I'm close to anything and everything. I also want to do like a map tour if that's something that you guys are interested in, where I really am sitting down and showing you guys exactly on the map where everything is. I also do that in my Zoom videos that I do with you guys, where we kind of break down exactly where it would make sense for you to live. It is a very hard thing to explain everyone's situation in these videos, but that is what I like to do on the Zoom calls. Anyways, point being is it has everything that you would possibly need within that little 5-minute thing. I am so lazy when it comes to driving. If I have to drive 20 minutes, that's like too far for me. So that is a major pro of living in Goodyear. If you need quick access to anything and everything, Goodyear would be the spot for you. Next, we're gonna go over a con. This is like things to do, but we're talking about things to do outside, really recreational activities. Goodyear, depending on where you are, and this is why I'm gonna do this 3-part driving series, is because Goodyear's huge. You could really be north of the 10 is Goodyear, south of the I-10 is Goodyear, and then up on Estrella Mountain is also considered Goodyear. So depending on where you are, you might not have quick access to your recreational activities. If you guys like to do hiking, if you like to do trail walks and things like that, The main part of Goodyear off the mountain is not necessarily going to be very friendly for that. Of course, if you are located or interested in moving to Estrella Mountain, which is considered Goodyear, then you will definitely have more access to some of those trails and things like that, whether it be biking, hiking, all of the fun things. But if you're looking to be really close to the mountains, like the White Tanks, where you can be going hiking within maybe 10 minutes, Buckeye would be a really good option for you, or Waddell would be another really good option just because they are a little bit closer to those White Tanks. And of course there's options in the East Valley, but we are talking about West Valley today. But if you're interested in doing those recreational, depending on where in Goodyear, you might want to reconsider because it might not be the best option. And again, your definition of far could be way different than mine. I don't like driving very far to do what I like to do. So if you go hiking often, very often, right, you might want to consider being within that 10-15 minute or even just walking distance of wherever you want to do your recreational activities, versus like in Goodyear, the main part off, like not on the mountain, down below. I'll pop up a map so you guys can see kind of exactly where I'm talking about, but you're still, I don't know, 30 minutes from the White Tanks. So again, it's not too bad, maybe 40 minutes to the White Tanks, depending on how and where you're going, like which trail you're gonna be hiking. Not too bad, but if you're doing it every single day or every other day, that might be a little bit of a stretch. You definitely wanna consider Estrella Mountain. Goodyear is the city, Estrella Mountain is like the subdivision. You definitely wanna consider that because that will be a good spot for you. Next thing, pro or con, depending on how you look at it, and this is not just specific to Goodyear, but specific to all of Arizona, is of course the weather. I mention it probably in every single video because it is the most asked question. Even I'm licensed in another state as well. That's always the most asked question is there as well. So it doesn't matter what state you live in, everyone wants to know what the weather is like. So Arizona specifically is obviously very hot during the summertime, but some people love the heat. Like I say all the time, I have people saying, I can't wait to get in the heat. I prefer the heat. It's like, I've been wanting to live in the heat my whole life. Then Arizona is the place for you. It is hot. There's pros and cons to having heat, right? Or like living in this sort of climate. Not everyone can handle it. And that makes the housing maybe a little bit more affordable versus like everyone, of course, like no matter your views on California or not, or any sort of beach area, right? Like it's usually a lot cooler. So people want to live there a lot more, which obviously makes the pricing somewhat unaffordable versus Arizona. If you can stand the heat, it's a good spot to be. You probably want to plan for maybe, what do I say, like 3-ish months out of the year, really, really hot. So like 110-ish on average. And then also maybe 2 other months in the beginning and the end where it's going to be closer to that 100 degrees. The rest of the year, very beautiful. Of course, you know, we have community pools, we have recreational centers throughout Goodyear. Goodyear does have a couple different places where you can do swimming, you can go on the water slides, or if you're interested in a membership at a gym, there is a Lifetime nearby. They have pool, an indoor pool and an outdoor pool with a pool slide, I think inside and outside. So either way, you're going to have access to get cooler. I hate the heat, but I'd much rather be able to afford the type of living that I want to live, and I can really only do that in Arizona, unless you're a bajillionaire, which awesome, love that for you. If you want the heat, again, Goodyear is a great spot. It's beautiful, and it also is quite cool during the winter time, or even just like spring, fall, winter, beautiful weather majority of the time. Probably going to be during the winter time, maybe like 60, like it's not too cold at all. And some of you guys probably that are from a different state where it does snow, like Wyoming or Michigan or something like that, you guys are laughing at me right now. Like 60 degrees, that's cold. That's just Arizona for you. Anyone that's an Arizona native or has been living here for a long time, our bodies just get used to the hot. So like 60 degrees is freezing to us, and we'll have the heater on in our house because we're psycho. But anyways, either way, just consider the weather when you're not just moving to Goodyear, but moving to Arizona in general. next pro or con, again, depending on how you're looking at it, is going to be cost of living. Cost of living in Goodyear is a little bit more than some of the other places that maybe I've mentioned, like Buckeye. Buckeye is one of the most affordable places to live. I have that already recorded, so if you guys want more information on that, go ahead, once you're done with this video, check that out. But Goodyear is, because anytime, let me explain like pricing, right? So anytime you're gonna get closer to that Phoenix metro area, majority of the time, like 90% of the time, it's going to be a little bit more expensive than being on those outskirts, right? So Buckeye, for example, is an outskirt. It's a little bit further from Phoenix, maybe 45 minutes. In Goodyear, you're probably 30 minutes, depending on where in Goodyear you are. So it's a little bit closer, which just makes it a little bit more desirable, because if people work downtown or want quick access to a lot of the things that maybe downtown has to offer, whether that be date night, whether that be, you know, the airport's not too far away from there, nightlife, like all of these things, right, that downtown Phoenix might have to offer, then you're gonna wanna be near Goodyear. I like Goodyear because I do work everywhere, so I have to drive a lot, and anytime I can get a little bit closer where it makes it a little bit less of a drive for maybe the East Valley or North Valley, it is more convenient for me. So just depending on your situation, keep all of this in mind, right? But going back to cost of living, probably average price point in the Goodyear area, depending again if you're in, we'll say section 1 is the north of the 10, section 2 is just south of the 10, and then section 3 is going to be Estrella Mountain. All of these things you really need to consider because they're all gonna have different price points, but I would say on average, right, you're gonna probably look anywhere between 500 to 550 on your average, right? Like, of course, it goes much, much more than that, and it goes a little bit lower than that. It's pretty hard to find anything under 400, 450 in these Goodyear areas, depending on what you're looking for. Every single type of house could be a different scenario. So a 1,500 square foot house in Goodyear is gonna be a completely different situation than a 3,000 square foot home in Goodyear. And the average price points for those are going to be different. But again, plan for around 500, 550 if you're looking to be in the Goodyear areas. All three could be around about that price. All of these things in mind, right? You also want to consider just like the cost of living here in general, and the common goods and all of those things. I find it really hard to compare certain spots because, you know, LA food pricing, LA gas, LA everything is probably more expensive than it is here, but it is probably very similar to what it would be in Denver or maybe Texas or all of these things. Like costs of goods themselves, unless you're in a huge metro that's like very popular place to live, I would say, your cost of living is going to be pretty standard to probably what you're experiencing now. Gas is probably around $4 right now, so that's something to consider. If you're in Goodyear and you work in Phoenix, you're going to be paying less gas, less money in gas than you are if you live in Buckeye, just because you're going to be driving less miles, right? Just because you're a little bit closer to those areas. So all of these things in mind, you guys have to consider that. You know, car insurance, all of these little things that just, they're not specific to Goodyear, right? They're specific to Arizona in general. I do have a cost of living video if you guys want to check that out as well once you're done here. I have tons of videos recorded already, so you guys can go ahead and watch them, and I'm going to continue to post, so you'll have tons of content moving forward as well. But cost of living is a super important one, and when I say it could be considered a con, some people think $500,000 is very, very expensive. And granted, it is quite expensive. Like, it is not necessarily a first-time home buyer price. It is a little bit harder to get in here if you are a first-time home buyer that's trying to buy around 450 or under. It's definitely going to be a little bit difficult. Goodyear is one of the most popular places to live in the West Valley, so you want to keep all of this in mind when it comes to competition. But again, I go over everything with you guys in our Zoom calls, whether it be strategy, whether it be price point, whether it be where to exactly live based off of what your guys' needs are. All of these things are super important. So again, if you guys are considering making the move, you'll definitely want to reach out. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up button. It really helps out my channel and gives me the motivation to keep making these videos for you. And if you guys want to see all the other parts that I'm going to be making of Goodyear. Like I mentioned, this is kind of the pros and cons, anything and everything Goodyear, and then the next couple videos are going to be a drive-through video on each of those locations, section 1 of Goodyear, section 2, and section 3. So you'll definitely want to stick around for that. So go ahead and subscribe. It's going to be on Mondays and Thursdays at 5 p.m. that I will be posting. And if you have questions on moving to Goodyear or any suburb, or even the urban areas, I still work there even though I don't live there, go ahead and reach out. My number and email are popping up. And until next time, guys, I will see you later. Bye.